Hey everyone, before we begin, make sure to subscribe to my channel. This story is intense, emotional, and you won't want to miss a single detail. The ballroom at the Hotel Sacher in Vienna was glittering that night. A haze of crystal chandeliers and murmured conversations, champagne glasses clinking, the air scented with expensive perfume and ambition. Winter had pressed against the city in icy gusts, snow swirling along the Ringstrasse. But inside, everyone moved in warmth, in calculated appearances. I arrived 15 minutes late as usual. My coat brushed against the marble floor, shoes clicking softly in rhythm with a low murmur of classical music. I had spotted her immediately. Isabella, my wife of 6 years, radiant in a deep burgundy gown that hugged her frame, hair pinned back, lips red, and eyes sparkling with that cruel, teasing light I once adored. I stepped forward, arms open for a hug, a gesture I had thought ordinary, intimate, unremarkable. But as I approached, she recoiled, stepping back, raising her hands as if to ward me off. "Not now," she yelled, her voice slicing through the murmurs, carrying to friends, colleagues, strangers alike. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" Laughter flickered around the room. Whispers followed. I felt my cheeks burn, not from shame, but from something far heavier. The humiliation she handed me so casually was familiar, subtle, cruel, like the way my father had humiliated my mother in front of neighbors when I was a child. A laugh, a sneer, and the knowledge that you were powerless to respond. I smiled, calmly, polished. I bowed slightly and said, "Of course, Isabella," before retreating into the crowd. By the time the party ended, my chest was tight. I wandered alone along the frozen Kärntnerstrasse, the lights reflecting off ice, a soft symphony of wind, and distant trams filling the streets. I thought about the years, the subtle dominance she exercised over me, the whispered dismissals, the friends she gathered like trophies while mocking my quiet nature, the way she laughed at my concerns, my ambitions, my fears. I returned home after midnight, the city silent except for the faint hum of streetlights. Isabella had already returned, pouring herself a late-night cocktail, heels discarded, hair loose. She smiled at me with that familiar charm, expecting the apology, the soft words, the routine absolution I had offered so many times before. I said nothing. I poured myself a glass of water and walked to the balcony, overlooking the snowy roofs of Vienna, breath fogging in the cold. I made a decision that night, one precise and deliberate, the kind that took years of observation to execute. The next morning, I began quietly. Isabella left for work, the red scarf still trailing behind her like a banner of arrogance. I opened her email account, a small detail she had left synced to my phone years ago for convenience. Patterns emerged immediately. Hidden meetings, weekend trips she never mentioned, subtle transfers of money to accounts I didn't know existed. Names I recognized from previous whispers, people I had never trusted. I didn't react. I cataloged. I recorded. I built a map of betrayal so complete, so unassailable, that it would leave her no defense when it came time. By the afternoon, I involved an old friend, Lucas, a lawyer with a reputation for discretion. We approached this like chess, careful, deliberate, waiting for the right moment. Every email, every booking, every whispered conversation became a piece of the strategy. I maintained my normalcy. I spoke with her over lunch, asked about her projects, smiled at her stories. My composure unnerved her. She began to over-explain, to stumble over details she once managed effortlessly. The climax arrived one Thursday evening. Isabella had invited friends to a small dinner in our apartment. Her idea, a show of social grace. The apartment was immaculate, candles lit, music soft. She wore her familiar, flawless smile, unaware that her world had already begun to tilt. I served dinner as usual, pouring wine with precision, and chatting lightly with guests. Conversation flowed, laughter filled the room, yet every sentence she uttered carried a subtle tremor. She noticed my calm, my neutrality, the way I didn't flinch at her thinly veiled jabs. After dessert, I excused myself briefly and returned with a folder. I placed it in front of her, silently. Guests murmured. She glanced at it, puzzled. "What is this?" she asked, voice tight. "Documentation," I replied evenly. "A record of things you thought no one would notice, no one would verify." Her eyes widened as she flipped through pages. Emails, receipts, hotel bookings, bank transfers. Evidence of secret trips, clandestine meetings, and manipulations that reached beyond our marriage into her professional life, and worse, into financial arrangements we shared. The room grew silent. Whispers began, and the kind that spread like wildfire in social circles. Isabella's composure crumbled, the mask she had perfected for years slipping. How?" she stammered. "I observed," I said softly. "I waited. And now everything is visible." Tears welled in her eyes. The guests, oblivious to the depth of betrayal, mistook it for a marital spat. I let them leave quietly, offering no explanation beyond a polite smile and a calm, "Thank you for coming." Alone, I watched her sit at the dining table, hands trembling, staring at the folder. Her empire of control, of manipulation, of subtle cruelty, had collapsed under its own weight. She sobbed quietly, finally vulnerable, exposed. Over the next weeks, the consequences unfolded. Financial advisors were alerted to irregularities she had orchestrated. Her professional contacts began questioning her ethics. Friends she had counted on for loyalty withdrew quietly, sensing instability. I maintained my life with quiet dignity. Work, home, solitude. I did not gloat. I did not celebrate. Revenge, I realized, was not a spectacle. It was equilibrium restored, the scales tipped back toward truth. Months later, Isabella moved out. Her social circle diminished. The apartment felt lighter, freer, the city outside more vibrant without the shadow of her control looming over it. I restored the balance she had disrupted for years, silently and completely. Sometimes at night, I think of that party, the rejection of a hug, the laughter that cut through my chest. I smile quietly to myself. 10 years of subtle domination, 10 years of invisible bruises, undone in one precise orchestration of patience and calm. The city of Vienna moved on. Snow melted. The Danube reflected the spring sun. And in the quiet apartment, with its warm light and soft hum of the city, I understood fully. True power is measured not in anger, not in confrontation, but in the patient, deliberate restoration of balance, and in the ability to make someone who once humiliated you face their own reflection in absolute clarity. By morning, her tears had dried, but the lesson remained. I had waited, I had watched, and I had chosen the moment that changed everything.